welcome back, sissies, gays, and theys. I am the Stuttering Sissy, and welcome back to another video. Please subscribe, like, and share. I'd really like to build our community that we're making here. Today's topic is gays and women, our relationship to each other, and I think especially with things that I'm seeing online and the internet discourse, I wanted to jump into, our relationship with women as gay men, and, the wonderful things that we do for one another, and also maybe some challenges that I'm seeing presented in online discourse. And so let's jump right into it. So I think, speaking from my experience, like, the women in my life have helped me so much. They've helped me shape a lot of who I am in terms of like my values, being kind, being empathetic, being strong, these things that are seen as, the opposite of masculinity. Actually, I firmly believe are strengths, and they don't have a specific gender. I think that's something that, we learn when we're in like pre-K and kindergarten, being kind to one another. And I think growing up, like, girls and women were my friends. They were safety from, when boys didn't necessarily want to hang out with me anymore because they were afraid that they'd be gay by association with me. And, as I gotten older and come into my sexuality, I think there's I can speak only from my experience with the women that I have in my life that I call my friends, but I think there's a safety with each other, and something that I read on online discourse that, I had never really thought about, but, with heterosexual women, yes, they have cultivated like wonderful communities and friendships within their own selves and within their own lives, but because of the way that they are socialized, oftentimes there's a competition within them to get a man or to get a potential man. And so sometimes, even within friend circles, there's a competitiveness that isn't necessarily there between women and gay men. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I'd never actually thought about that. Maybe for one, because I don't see women and gay men like being in competition with each other, mostly because gay men like other gay men and women like straight men. And so, there you would think that there really isn't any competition. And I say all this because a few weeks ago, there is a podcaster that I like named Carlos King. He was an executive producer on one of the Real Housewives franchises, and on his podcast, he often interviews a lot of stars from the Housewives franchise and other reality stars. And I was really excited about an interview he did with a reality star named EJ Johnson, who is the son of basketball legend Magic Johnson. And I remember that EJ and his sister had a show like maybe 10 years ago or now. And I loved it. I loved it because for me it was one of the first representations I saw, healthy representations I saw of a successful gay black man. And not only that, but he was super femme. Like, his fashion was on point. It still is on point, and I really enjoyed, his series. And eventually he like stepped away from the spotlight, but on social media I would see him post occasionally now and then. And so I was really excited about this interview. And EJ's talking about his life journey within fashion, within navigating high society, reality shows, and eventually going into his dating life and what that looks like. And the viral moment that has been going around in online discourse is that EJ said that he doesn't really date other gay men because gay men aren't trying to pursue him. He's not really trying to pursue them, and a lot of the men that he dates are straight. And so, of course, that became a huge thing in online discourse. And, women were very upset by this. And something that came up for me when I had heard that straight women were upset by this, I was kind of like very curious and like, why are you so upset by this? And I wonder if specifically going back to the idea of women having to be in competition with each other, if these women in their minds are like, oh, this is just another obstacle for us to have to overcome in order to obtain or be in relationship with a man who we want to be our husband, right? And so I was thinking about that being a possibility. And then I was just also like thinking specifically about EJ's circumstance, right? I was thinking about how, with what EJ said, for me, in my opinion, I think that's a very like privileged answer in the sense of that, like, let me go back. I think that EJ could easily go into a gay bar, and I'm sure there's someone that would like them. Like, I'm sure of it. Like, gay people, we do not live in a monolith. Even the masculinity, of course, like in society, it's the pinnacle, right? But I'm thinking about EJ's access to spaces that people like myself and probably a lot of people watching would not be able to access. And so I'm sure that there's someone there that would be attracted to him. I just think that there are options. And so for me, I do kind of question where EJ is on his journey, and that's for him and himself to explore and be on. Also, as someone with extreme wealth, he doesn't necessarily have to question or really delve into his identities. And again, like this idea of access, he could probably walk into a hotel bar, strike up a conversation with any man, regardless of their orientation. And, that space is probably a high status space, right? So, like, it's not necessarily places where people, regardless of gender, if you're a gay man or a straight woman, could necessarily access. And so there was a part of me that was like, well, even if he was seeing straight men, these men are looking for a specific thing. Like, EJ's looking for a specific thing. And, I think that would disqualify a lot of us from even being within the realm of site or potential dating. Um, I think on the same side of this coin, I saw a discourse of how there was one of the stars of Tyler Perry's Beauty and Black, I guess folks found out that that person was gay and saying that, oh, like that's such a waste. And I've heard that too in my younger years of like when people have asked me about my sexual orientation, and oftentimes it is straight women that are like, oh, that's such a waste. And you know, in my younger years, I would laugh it off because I don't, I didn't take offense to it. I didn't think it was something that you know was meant to be a slight or shade or hurtful. And I think the discourse around it now are like a lot of gay men specifically are tired of hearing that, especially in the year of 2026 when there's is the internet, where there is so much information. And not only that, but like also to some people it can feel like dehumanizing, like that gay men are not here to fulfill you you a fantasy or a stereotype that women or people of any gender may have of us. And I understand that too, of like it is tiring to constantly fight these stereotypes, or to hear these stereotypes, these old stereotypes that if you did a quick Google search and or ask any gay person, like we can quickly be like, girl, like that's not it, right? And so I can definitely understand why gay men can be upset by this discourse, or by these comments that are happening. And I bring up both of these points because I think being in the world that we're in and the climate that we're in, I just want gay men and women, gay women, lesbian women, straight women, like I want us all to come together. I mean, we really are in this fight together at this point. I think we always have been, and I think being able to really talk to each other and understand each other's perspective. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with that perspective. I think even just having like these difficult like conversations around gender and sexuality is important. And that I think what also comes up too with these conversations around gender, sexuality, and sexual orientation is also there's a class element that I think is often left out. As like I said before, like I personally wasn't offended with what EJ said. I can understand people being curious or having pause because I think there is stuff to unpack there. I think there is stuff that EJ perhaps needs to unpack. And also, like I said before, like I think wealth affords people choice. That people that do not have wealth in their possession do not necessarily have access to being able to climb a social ladder to date outside of our tax bracket. Yes, this happens. Yes, this happens. And also, I don't think it happens as often as we see in rom-coms. I think oftentimes people date within their tax bracket. And so I think if we can, approach these conversations with nuance. I know it's difficult in these days when, opinions are often turned into facts, when in reality, like, they are opinions, and to each their own. And I think that what I would hope moving forward is that gay men and women can continue to be there for each other, to protect each other, to hear each other out. It's really hard out in these streets as it is, and so I just think being able to be in community together, to support each other and laugh with each other is just as important as ever. And I would love to hear from y'all, like, what women in your life as a queer person have you felt more supported by, and on the flip side, as a woman, whether gay or straight, like, what queer men in your life have you felt supported by? I hope you all enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and I will see you soon. Bye.